A big part of the Power Pause movement is recognizing that in making room for family life, you can actually also make room for yourself to grow alongside, right? When you kind of come out of the fog of having made this decision and settled into the discomfort and moved through the discomfort, you get to say, okay, I've already parted with my ego of career titles. I recognize what I'm trading off on. I recognize what I'm focusing on. I know that this is for right now, and this is one chapter in a long game.
Welcome to the Momcozy Village, Together We Grow podcast. On this show, I sit down with some incredible guests to talk about all things motherhood. I'm your host, Lelaina Rabari, and today I'm thrilled to welcome the amazing Neha Ruch. Neha is an author and the founder of Mother Untitled, a leading platform for ambitious women embracing family life. Her new book, The Power Pause, redefines stay-at-home parenthood for a new generation of women and families. Neha wrote The Power Pause after stepping away from her career. After 10 years in brand strategy and earning her MBA from Stanford, she chose to pause her professional journey to focus on family life when her second child was born. So who better to share their insights on taking a career pause that truly works for you? Welcome to the show, Neha, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for all the support, Lelaina. It means the world.
How are you doing today? The book is on its way. It's coming out. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. So we're recording this 5 days before the book is on doorsteps. And it's been a long road. So I'm so happy to have this resource out in the world, and the community behind it is so powerful. So it feels like it's an important moment for culture in America.
Now, looking back, did you imagine you would be an author and putting this resource out in the world and creating something like this? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So to look back a bit, I had built a career in brand strategy, specifically working with women and moms. That was always my shtick. And I think I love the way women's minds work. I'm fascinated by it. I love storytelling. And that career really suited me for a long time. I went to business school in part because I wanted a train stop to surround myself with smart people and figure out what came next. And I ended up landing my dream job, running brand at a tech startup. And then I had my first child. And it was like, as I was with him, I loved this new version of myself. It's not like I loved every element of the day-to-day, but I loved the peace I felt. I loved the curiosity I felt about how to make this new life work for us. I felt like I was learning again. And so when I initially downshifted my career into part-time work and then eventually paused, it wasn't because I thought that was the right choice for my kids. I think, all the data in the world shows you that there are incredible outcomes for kids, no matter what their parents' careers look like, as long as they are loved and safe. It was really because I wanted to dig in and enjoy this stage of life in a new way. And what was wild about it was I immediately started hearing the shame and stigma that surrounds the choice for an ambitious woman to make room for family life.
Right.
So I knew pretty early on that that's what I wanted to focus on in different ways. And it's obviously taken different shapes during my own motherhood journey.
It's so unfortunate as you're sharing, you're having these realizations, you're, tapping into these new parts of yourselves, and you're met with this shame and stigma. Was that surprising to you? How did you navigate that? It's not something that is expected, I'm assuming.
Motherhood is a shift in and of itself in terms of having to let go of what other people think to tune into what makes sense for your family. We get judged whether we bottle feed or breastfeed or we co-sleep or we sleep train, right? There's judgments coming from every which way. And I think one of the superpowers as you build that muscle of tuning into yourself is tuning out the noise. And that was not something I was good at. Pre-motherhood. I cared a lot about what people thought. And so when I very clearly knew I wanted more time at home with my children, because my husband was working more than full-time, running a tech startup of his own at the time, that was what worked for our family. And I knew that in my bones. And yet I was hearing from peers, from family members, from close friends. Are you giving up? Are you going to be bored all day? Did you take a spot at business school only to waste it? And it was interesting to hold two things, to be so deeply stung by the words, but also know so clearly that I was making the right choice for myself. And I know that that is not a unique experience to me. I discovered that that was a shared experience for so many women. And that lit me up. I got to meet incredible women in that first year of motherhood that's similar to myself, similar to you, ambitious, clocked in a decade in their career, were having kids later. So they'd already accrued education and work experience. They weren't serving their husbands cocktails at the end of the day. They had really equitable relationships with their partners, right? Men are spending 3 times the amount of time with their kids than any generation prior. We had access to Squarespace and Instagram and Masterclass. So we were thinking about all these other ways we could stay connected.
Yeah.
None of it matched the tropes about the stay-at-home mother. All of it spoke to this more fluid narrative around work and family. And at the time, it was the lean in movement and the girl boss era. And so everywhere I looked, there was great content for the traditional working parent, but it seemed to cast shame on anything that wasn't that. So I started Mother Untitled as a very small project, but with the hope for it to grow into the movement it is today.
So I was laid off at 30 weeks pregnant with my first child. I'm expecting my second one. And it made me pause. And I discovered the power of pause that you were talking about. But as I re-entered the workforce, something that I realized is I don't know if I want to keep girl bossing. Is something wrong with me? I just want to relax, or I want to rediscover who I am. I want to embrace this moment that I'm in with my child in my life.
We live in a culture that has a very flawed, broken system around caregiving. Yeah. You are not broken. We live in a very broken and flawed system that has grossly undervalued family life and is re-examining that right now. So it takes a lot of rewiring. You've been fed, like so many of us, the idea that ambition is moving unilaterally in one direction with your career. And the reality of the definition of ambition is the determination to do things we care about. That's it. That's the dictionary definition. We are human beings that care about a multitude of things over the long game of life. It is natural to shift priorities over seasons. It is natural for our ambition to make room for that variety of priorities. Feminism. You're speaking about feminism when you sort of nod to the girl boss movement and the lean in era, which is sort of the precipice of that, right?
Right.
The reality of feminism is that it did so much great work for us in the 1970s and 80s. The second wave feminists really wanted to prove our capacity in the workforce. But even Betty Friedan, who penned Feminine Mystique, she wrote a second book that's lesser talked about called Second Stage, where she acknowledges that feminism got family.
Yes.
So the greatest feminism we are plowing through now in this wave is starting to recognize not only do we have capacity in the workforce, we are uniquely powerful as women, which means we have unique needs and wants, right? We nurse, we bleed, we birth. So starting to get clear about the reality of life allows us to create a more sustainable career journey. And that is ambitious, that is modern, that is feminist, and it has to include pauses and shifts.
That speaks to me so much. I had probably collectively a 7-month pause between one career. Now here I'm at Momcozy with this wonderful global brand. And I have such clarity around what I want and what I need and how to advocate for myself, how to share my story, how to bring people into the story, and, how to be a better business stakeholder. And I think there are so many gifts that you gain when you take that pause. What are some of the gifts that you gained when you took your career pause that you may want to encourage others? These are things that you may find or be curious about if taking a pause is a part of your story.
Well, I love that you shine a light on that, because a big part of the Power Pause movement is recognizing that in making room for family life, you can actually also make room for yourself to grow alongside, right? And a big part of the book, but also the sort of arc and journey that I experienced was that when you kind of come out of the fog of having made this decision and settled into the discomfort and moved through the discomfort, you get to say, okay, I've already parted with my ego of career titles. I've made peace with this is actually a stage of life that I'm going to own. I recognize what I'm trading off on. I recognize what I'm focusing on. I know that this is for right now. And this is one chapter in a long game. Once you've done that, because no one is handing you the success metrics of salary and promotions, you have to tune into coming up with your own authentic goals about when I look back on this time in my life, how will I have liked to grow? And I walk women through that exercise, but to dumb it down, it is 3 buckets, right? There are personal goals, there are professional goals, and that can be creative goals. It doesn't have to be, the traditional workforce, and family goals. And when you can give yourself this time to say, well, if I fast forward 3 years or 10 years and I draw out my ideal day, what does that reveal about what I want to work on? And for me, that revealed I want to work on being more calm and less reactive. Mm-hmm. So that was my personal growth area. And so in little ways that worked in family life, I started to move myself toward that goal with self-development books, podcasts, meditation apps. For me professionally, I had learned a lot in advertising and brand. I wanted to explore something I'd always wanted to do with content. And so it was about, can I write a blog post 3 times a week on a free app, right? Can I do that? Can I challenge myself to move myself forward in that direction? That grew into this work, which is such a reminder that the seeds can be small, but they can still plant for something big and meaningful. And from a family goal perspective, I'd always wanted a silly, lighthearted home. And so for me, success looked like having a dance party every single Monday, right? And I came back year over year and I redefined those success metrics. But the deepest work was tapping into when you tune out the noise and you partner with the path, what does success really look like? And how can I grow in all those non-traditional ways? Over and above just the leadership training that happens when you're raising kids, empathy, communication, time management, organization, perspective, right? All of that combined became a superpower that I came back to my work with, like you described as well.
I love that because that places success in our hands. It is very tangible. It is right in front of us. And I think, we're fed this narrative that, success may be in the eyes of somebody else, but the pause helps you understand that you are empowered and you have the agency in your life to figure out what success means and looks like for you in this moment and period of your life. Mm-hmm. Now, these are wonderful things, but what are the challenges that women are up against? And even thinking or making the decision to take a career pause. I can think of so many right now, but I know you trialed working just 2 days a week and then transitioned, but maybe walk us through some of the challenges you were met with and how did you ultimately make these decisions?
I think that first one that we've already talked about is tuning out the shame, right? Because the work that we're doing now as a generation is rewiring that so women face less penalty and shame. And the work of the book is to help minimize that downside. The second piece is that we've assigned tremendous value in this country to paid work. Yes. And whether or not taking a career break is a financial no-brainer for your family, we fear parting with our financial power and becoming a financial dependent. As a culture, have assigned so little value to caregiving. That is the work now that we have to educate our partners in our homes and ourselves about, right? So the work I take you through pretty right away in the book is how do we reframe this for ourselves in a joint partnership, knowing that if we are in a 2-parent household and one parent, male or female, 1 in 5 stay-at-home parents right now are dads, if we decide that our family is best suited to have one parent at home or one parent needs or wants to because their child has special needs, or the cost of childcare is so egregious. Right. 1 in 3 women feel forced to pause because of that cost of childcare. So this isn't a luxury. This is a privilege if you get to choose, but it's not a luxury. Once we do that math, the goal really is that we are able to have the conversations with our partner to decide and determine that that partner working out of the home for pay is equally dependent on the partner working in the home to allow them to single task and go through their day without having to worry about their kids' doctor appointments. And if there's a snow day at school or yet another parent teacher conference, there's an interdependence that makes certain that the joint household income is truly joint. Both partners have access to it. And I do raise the flag that if your partnership is rocky, if you're not getting to that conclusion or that agreement as easily, there's the option to create a contractual agreement just to be able to sort of protect everyone's assets and focus the time on shoring up your marriage, or consider downshifting into a flexible scenario while staying connected to income, just in case of worst case scenario. But we are seeing partners getting married later. So we're seeing more vernacular and tools like the ones in the book to have those conversations early on.
I'm so glad that you're giving a framework for those conversations, because without them, oftentimes people will feel like they have to sacrifice and, live on a shoestring. And I feel that can breed some resentment in a relationship and, make you question even more, was this right for me? Should I have even done this in the first place? Leading to that internal shame and guilt that only makes things troublesome. So I love that you shared that there is now language around that and people can have dialogues around that. Are there any anecdotes just from your life or those that have been a part of the movement of when they have these tools, how do things change at home?
I think one of the other pressing issues related to that financial conversation is the very sad data that 1 in 3 stay-at-home parents never have any help.
Terrible.
Including family assistance, which means they're working 24/7 without breaks. I can attest, I was one of those parents who it wasn't even the cost as a barrier. It was the guilt and the flawed belief that if I did not do paid work, I did not deserve support. And it was my husband who educated me, but I had to face what it looked like to burn out, transitioning to 2 children, and yell at my poor 3-year-old son, who did not deserve to be yelled at. But I recognized in myself a need for support, but it wasn't in the prettiest of ways. And, in speaking to multiple different women, over 100 for the book and 300 sort of in collective interviews, we're looking at women of various financial means who take that time to have to learn the hard way. And women describe different situations where, sometimes their husband is a little concerned about if one parent is at home now investing money in a babysitter. And then it takes having to trade off, a woman described trading off therapy, because that would afford 5 hours of a babysitter each week. And only then did their partner recognize, oh, this is an investment in the joint household. It goes back to that mindset. He realized, oh, this makes my life easier too. And so often we believe, well, childcare is just out of the woman's salary. It's not. It's out of the household income. It is a budget line item like everything else because it supports everyone be whole and healthy. And one of the best interviews I did that helped me was with a child psychologist, Tova Klein, who talked to me about how actually allowing yourself that childcare isn't just good for the mother or the father and the parental unit because it affords breaks and supported partners and parents. It's also good for the kids.
Yes.
To learn that they are safe and loved by other loving adults. And I wish someone had told me that early on.
Yes.
Because as soon as we invest in help, we unlock these other opportunities. So I love this one with this woman, Priscilla de Muzan, who lives in Northern California. And she parted with a job in technology and she was at home and she was feeling listless. And then she realized, well, I can start using this, 5 hours of babysitting to meet a friend, a new friend. And they started setting up once a week these backyard burrito sessions where they would be accountability partners.
I love that.
This sort of speaks to how we can use the mom friends as our professional network, right? We are still networking in motherhood. We can still explore what comes next. And they used it as a way in which to sort of talk therapy, what their interests were. They workshopped their resumes together and she ended up finding a path back to writing. And that's what she's doing right now. She's a technology writer in Napa, California. And, those stories speak to when we make room for ourselves to grow alongside family life, we can start to unlock that potential of mom friends as thought partners. We can tap into how might we use Instagram or a masterclass or volunteering to expose what comes next. And that's where we really start to tap into the possibility of the stage of life.
That's where I want to go to next is the path forward. We have many conversations and moms say, I'm ready for my pause perhaps to be done. And I want to transition back into the quote unquote traditional workforce. How does that journey begin? What are the hallmarks to that journey? Maybe speaking from your own experience and some guidance that you've offered in the book, but how does someone begin that journey? First of all, knowing, hey, is it right for me? Is it time for this pause to be finished? But what are some steps I can take to move back into that workforce if that's what my heart desires?
To go back a little bit to when you're resigning, the ideal goal is that even if you have no window to when you want to return, you want to resign with a sense of pride and accomplishment, right? You want to take stock of all the skills and the wins, because I made this mistake. I very abruptly quit. I didn't land that plane well. So I didn't nurture those relationships as well as I would have. And those relationships can actually serve you as your on-ramp back.
Got it.
I wish that I had written my resume as I was leaving because I forgot some of my wins.
Right.
So I talk a lot about as you're leaving, update your LinkedIn with all of those tangible metrics because you won't remember in 5 years. And then while you're moving through this stage of life, and this I did do, and I really encourage women to do this at whatever time they begin this journey, whether or not you're thinking about returning, use this as that exploratory period, right? Meaning this is a self-study of sorts. So besides the goal setting, study when you feel lit up, when you feel proud. It could be managing a toddler's tantrum. It could be getting off the phone and having a win with the insurance company. It could be advising your partner on his marketing strategy. Keep a running notes app or an Excel spreadsheet and just write those down, because those dots connect backward and they tend to expose what's coming next. Meaning there was a woman who realized one of the things that lit her up the most was coordinating a new busing system for her underserved neighborhood. And what she realized was she really loved project management. And so two things happened from there. She was able to, under her career sabbatical for family life, which is what I like to call it, career sabbatical for family life on her resume, she was able to add some bullets there, including implemented highly technical transport system in an underserved area. How impressive does that sound, right? And so what it starts to do is reveal what you're interested in and build a portfolio of non-traditional experiences that, together with all of that accomplishment that didn't disappear, creates a story for you to speak to that growth that happened in your career break. I typically like to say you want to start thinking about returning about a year out, meaning you start thinking, well, do I want to return to what I was previously doing? In which case you might think about, do I want to take an online certification class because I used to be in marketing and I want to understand AI better, right? Or am I going into something new and don't know what I want to do? And maybe I want to test and learn with volunteering in areas I'm interested in, or have a weekly coffee with other mothers in different industries that I'm interested in. And you're using this more as an exploration period. And so, it is a journey. And I do want to explain one thing. Most women on career pauses are still finding ways to stay connected.
Absolutely.
They're volunteering at their kids' school, which often shines a light on what they want to do next. They're in some sort of mom group or networking community where they're meeting interesting women that lights and ignites new interest. They might be developing new hobbies and passions. And oftentimes the reason you're seeing so many mompreneurs, which I hate that phrase, but they are coming across problems that they want to solve.
Yeah.
And then what's really interesting is then they're recruiting their mom friends to help them on those businesses. So I love this idea of this new sort of economy moms are creating amongst ourselves, because I think that's where the future is.
Absolutely. Do you see from businesses and corporations the enthusiasm to acknowledge this experience that people are receiving on their family sabbaticals as you're sharing?
The numbers changing in terms that the recent data says 70% of hiring managers are used to seeing a pause on a resume.
Okay.
84% of millennials are going to take a career break over the course of their life, right? So it's getting
Right.
normalized. However, the bias still exists. And so it is really on the returner to approach the stage of life with strategy, which is the real goal of the book, is that we're minimizing the downsides. We're allowing a strategic roadmap so women can navigate this as a valid option, but still preserve their opportunities on the other side and have the language to tell the story. Because we're not at a place that the hiring manager is going to say, so tell me about all that non-traditional experience you had raising your children.
Let's cozy right up and talk. Yeah,
So
right.
it is on us to say,
Sure.
this is the great experience I've had. I'm really interested in returning in this particular role. And these are all the relevant experiences I've accrued to make me a committed participant in that role moving forward.
I like that. Own the story yourself. You have a story to tell, you have a story to create. The agency is with you. I love that. Now, how can others support the returner as they are, they're taking that time to figure out if this is right for me? How can friends, family members, professional networks support them in this journey back?
Oftentimes, the path back starts with our friends and network. So be a listening ear and a non-judgmental ear. I think that this whole movement can really happen at the drop-off lines, right? Where so often people discount women who look like they might not be professionally engaged. We don't even ask, like, what are you up to today? Because we're so nervous that we're going to put them in an uncomfortable position by saying, oh, I'm at home right now. No, we can all get curious about each other. We can say, what are you up to today instead of what do you do? It allows the person to say, I'm at home right now. I'm actually taking an online class or I'm working on the benefit for the school. It allows two-way communication because 1 in 3 working mothers will become stay-at-home mothers in the next 2 years. 1 in 2 are considering a downshift of their hours. 90% of women at home right now aim to return to the workforce. We're all evolving. We're all shifting.
Yes.
So if we can get curious about each other and extend a hand, maybe the woman at home right now can help, with pickups and be part of your village in that way. And maybe you can offer a listening ear or a connection or an introduction when you hear that she's interested in getting into advocacy work, right? There's a way in which we can come together and create those connections that transcend the divisions that we have falsely created between women.
Well, you're doing remarkable work. And what impact do you want your book, your movement to have on just societal, their views on motherhood and career pauses? What impact would you like to have?
Well, on a sort of cultural level, I hope we can get to a place where we're starting to create and assign economic value to caregiving. What we have not done is dignify that with respect for the intellectual and emotional labor, meaning that we might start coming up with these numbers about unpaid labor. What we have not done is elevate it from the diapers and the laundry to the work that is awe-inspiring behind the scenes, advocating for our children, figuring out complicated healthcare systems, forging community networks to support our family. That is the real work of motherhood that helps us grow and expand. On a personal level, I say this at the end of the book because my daughter struggled when I was announcing that I'd be spending more time on the road and working on the launch of this book. And I remember saying to her, this is for right now. We will come back and reevaluate this. And my goal with this book is that one day, if we do this right, then when someone asks her, was your mom a stay-at-home mom or a working mom? She won't even know what those phrases mean. She'll just know I was there, I was present, she was loved, I did work of meaning alongside. That's it. And, I hope our generation of daughters and sons grow up with more options in the long game of work and family.
Oh, I certainly love that. And thank you so much for your contributions. Now, where can our amazing audience find your book?
Oh, you can buy The Power Pause at any place you love to buy books and follow along at Mother Untitled as we grow the movement.
Wonderful. Neha, do you have any affirmations or meditations that you've relied on during your pause to nurture your self-esteem? I'd love for you to share them with our audience if there's anything that has been meaningful for you.
I highly recommend the book Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I think it's super powerful in letting go of other people's critique and being able to tune into yourself. The phrase that I often repeat to myself and my children in both parenting and work is right now, meaning making this choice for right now. And we get to always re-examine what comes next.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Neha, for joining me on the show today. And thank you for listening to Momcozy Village, Together We Grow podcast. We hope you'll join us next time. Bye for now.